How did it go? How did it go yesterday?
Well, I just, I think it went really well, and sort of the kind of, you know, responses that I got back were very positive.
Right.
So, I mean, I have asked the question directly. I emailed them today with some directions for next Saturday, and but it was an interesting. I haven't looked at the video yet, but there was an interesting little interchange about three-quarters of the way through the morning, and one student said, well, I think a culture of inquiry is a given with this group. And I said, well, that's great. And then somebody else said, well, I'm not sure it is. I think that there are different levels of engagement in that. And I think there's certainly room for growth. And I think it's worthy of attention. So that was kind of an interesting interchange and very helpful, really, that somebody kind of challenged it and then they had to think more deeply about it. So, and the other thing is that there are 2 new people that just joined who haven't been with the group.
Right.
So that's another reason for, being more explicit about what we'd like to have as a group.
Yeah.
And I think it really helped them become more part of the group. And they felt they were really contributing. And I think that may have been part of the reason why it seemed to move ahead so nicely, because they were new and yet they felt comfortable, getting into that process. And I did show the clip of my intentions at the beginning.
Right.
And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get on YouTube because some places, they block it, but I did, and it was good. And it kind of helped set the stage for where we want to go.
That feels really good, because to have you reflecting in the way that you're encouraging them to do, and being clear about your intentions, I would have thought would help in that development of the understanding of a culture, of inquiry, because it's nothing that you've done before. And I know you wanted, if you like, in one sense, to speed up the process and their understanding of the process. So it will be interesting, if we can almost just keep that process going, wouldn't it? With those reflections, the intentions, how things are going, and if they want to check out how you're feeling and thinking, they can access those. Yeah, very good.
One of the interesting things, too, is that there are 4 principals, headmasters in this group, and there are 5 nurses. So it's an interesting dynamic in itself. But the principals, I think to a person, we're all articulating how much pressure they feel and how much tension there is in their jobs.
Right.
That I haven't really heard to that degree. And sometimes you'll get one person say, "Oh well, it's not very happy living this life right now." But they all seem to be of the same opinion that there's a lot of pressure and they're being told, what they need to do as opposed to being able to make decisions around what they think is important.
Mm.
And one of the principals said, "Well, do you think it's possible to? I see we can create it here, this culture of inquiry. But do you think it's possible to create it in a school where there are so many opposing forces?" And I just kind of let it float for a bit. And then I said, "Well, why not?" And she said, "Well, there are a lot of tensions. You've got union directions and you've got ministry directions." And I said, "Well, why wouldn't you try to create that kind of safe environment within your school so that people have some kind of protection from all those external pressures?" She thought about it for a bit, and then they started talking about, well, what could you do?
Yeah.
And then one of the teachers, who was a kind of an informal leader in her school, said, I'm going to try some of these things and see whether, I can kind of change the personality of the culture away from kind of the negatives."
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, when you talk about your influence on others and system, I mean, that's an ideal if people are willing to engage in that kind of thinking and intentions to create that kind of a positive and supportive space wherever they are.
Yeah, it feels to me to be really very significant, this idea that they're all feeling a certain kind of tension. You know, and I recognize this within organizational contexts.
Yeah.
But then, if you open up, and it is a different quality of dialogue that focuses on the values, and we've seen this, that somehow, because the organizations tend not to focus on those values, and yet there's a source of tension around the organization, that by opening up this space, which you will have done through the master's program, that it offers them a way of understanding and a way of being that they might, as that participant was suggesting, she might be able to try something. And I think if we can just keep our understandings evolving about this, we'll be able to connect with others who are feeling the same. And I think from literally all over the world, in terms of different groups and people, that will be able to identify with what you've just said, you know, in terms of the values, the conversations, opening it up for this kind of dialogue. So that feels really exciting. Could I ask just about, you know, the intentions that you said that you were trying to live out on Friday? They included that sense of democratic evaluation, you know, and if they heard your video where you were saying about the valuing of trust, the sense of Liz with loving kindness, your own passion for creativity and criticism. I just wonder, were any of those taken up at all in terms of the conversation or not?
Well, we did talk about Buber and Sayre Bacon as the day went on, and we talked about, you know, that whole concept of being fallible knowers, and we talked about the nature of research, which was kind of incidental in that they were querying about when was there going to be, you know, some real rigorous empirical research going on as opposed to storytelling. Yeah. And so that was a great opening to talk about, you know, how we strengthen our narratives to make them research as opposed to simply smooth stories of self.
Yeah.
So I think that all of that conversation kind of got triggered out of the opening video.
Right, and was that on tape itself? Where, I mean, that feels so important, doesn't it? That conversation around how the narratives themselves, you know, they mustn't be those small stories.
I don't know how much or what specifically I got on the tape because, you know, I'm kind of where the computer slides projector is, and camera was at the back, and I couldn't kind of manage it, and I didn't want to sort of push it too far on the first day.
Yeah.
But they seem to really like the idea of videotaping, so I'll pick that up the next time and see where people are and they're thinking about it, and they're going to start doing some presentations of what the nature of their inquiry is, and we're going to help to strengthen those inquiries. And I said near the end, I said if people would like them videotaped and only for their own use, I mean, they can decide, you know, what they want to do with it, whether they want anybody else to see it, you know, whether they want to go on YouTube like I do, or whether they want to just keep it, you know, for their own edification. And they most of them seem to be nodding in agreement that that's a good source of another voice for their strengthening of their claims to know.
And does that go on, like, is it a weekly program? And when will you have the next one? Is it next weekend, or when's the next one?
It's very compressed. It's finished, like that was the 30th of April. It's finished on the 14th of June.
Yeah, okay.
Sections. And one is that weekend, which is Queen Victoria's birthday. You remember that?
I do.
So, you know, it's pretty much every week. Would you
like then, if we can, you know, do this kind of process where, you know, perhaps on the Friday we find just that bit of time where we could have that sense of what are the intentions for the Saturday, and then maybe on the Sunday, because I think that growth in their accounts, you know, where you're saying, well, you're encouraging them now to focus on their inquiries, and also then together in development of a culture of inquiry to help each other to strengthen their inquiries and accounts. I do think that that would be a very exciting process to show.
The other thing is that they're kind of starting to think about where are they going. This is kind of coming to the end of their first year in the summer.
Yeah.
And starting to think about, so what are they going to do with their final project, or what are they going to do coursework, or what is it going to look like? So I'm hoping to pull that in too. So would it be feasible that one of these Saturdays, and when we get kind of hot and heavy into the inquiry, that you might come and talk to them on Skype?
Oh, absolutely. That would be really great. It's always a pleasure, as I've done in the past, just to talk with them. And, we could have, if it's linked with your intentions, and you think that what I might be able to do in helping them with their kind of creative and critical evaluations to strengthen them, I'd be delighted to do that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think it'll be this week, because this week they just have to think about what is it that they want to inquire into.
Yeah.
And they're going to give me a little short paper on what they think that might look like.
Excellent.
And then the second week they're going to start, they do it kind of to make that kind of more specific and what the action might be and so on. It's not a very long period of time, so it's like a little mini inquiry.
Well, it is, but they could still do something, really significant, even with 4 or 5 weeks, with that kind of intensity. I think that would also help you to communicate the ideas that you have, to see these being taken up in that forum. So that would be really exciting to see that.
So it might be the 14th, or it might be the 28th.
Well, you just say, I can actually put that in. The 28th of May, it's these kind of time this month. I'm fine whether it's the 14th or the 28th. June becomes really hectic, but this month, I can manage that.
All right, well, then we'll plan for that. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be good.
It's good for them to hear other voices, that it's not just, my voice all the time.
Yeah.
And I think also to understand that this is part of a worldwide network of people that they can draw on, that will help them see this.
And contribute too, because there is something new about this conversation, then your willingness to inquire into your own practice, have this onto YouTube. So you're having a set of intentions, then reflecting on it, then drawing in the students, whoever wants to actually join in with this, to look at their inquiries being made public. I think it's really, really fascinating to see this. So let's try that. And, if you'd like next Friday sometime,